All right, welcome back into Indie B&B. Today we are joined by a very special guest. Something that's a little bit of a change up for us. We have an author, up and coming indie author, Catherine Shook. I guess you're not indie because you probably have a label, but hey, you're independent in my eyes. You're up and coming. We're juiced for the first book. So, Catherine, how are things up in New York today?
Hi, things in New York are good. I am sorry to report that, okay, I'm not self-published, you're right, I do have a publisher, but you should buy my book at an independent bookstore. So in a way, there's an indie bend here.
I love it. I love it. Yes, and we'll get right into the book. This is your first one, correct? First book coming out. So, if we're being honest, that's the title of it, and it is by Cat Shook. Is that your moniker? Are you Catherine or Cat Shook? Whenever you start moving forward.
I guess, well, so I mean, my name is Catherine, but in any job that I've ever had, I've always been called Cat. Like my bosses always just have shortened it. And because I previously worked at a literary agency where I'm now represented, so they just assumed that I would do Cat Shook, and multiple people told me that that sounds like better and sexier and cooler than Catherine Shook. So like, but I mean, some people do call me Cat, some people do call me Cat Shook. So it's not like quite a pen name, but almost like we're getting there.
I can't wait for your second pen name. I'm a big fan of the Dr. Seuss to P.D. Eastman. That transition. But I like the pen name. I love it, Cat Shook. So if we're being honest, let's get into it. Let's talk about it. But you have this passion for writing. Where did that come from? I don't know. I'm the same generation as you. I can't write an essay or anything, but yet you have written a full cover to cover fictional book that is getting people excited about buying it. So talk about that. What's got the passion?
Well, thank you for the question. I have always wanted to be a writer my whole life. So I don't know exactly like when it started really, but I have a great aunt who has had a few children's books published. My dad wrote for a couple of newspapers and different publications when he was younger. So I just always knew there was a thing that like people could do. And so I just always wanted to do it. When I was a child, I published a really popular publication called the Shook Family News. That was like just a riveting piece of journalism. No, it would just be like, my dog pooped today or whatever. But I've just always wanted to do it. And I've always written short stories and stuff, just like growing up. But then in college, and I majored in English and creative writing in college, but I had no idea like if that was a feasible career, like if that was something that you could really do like professionally, or I knew that you could obviously, but I didn't know how you went about doing that. So I moved to New York after college, and I worked at a literary agency, and that's where I sort of figured out how the whole world like worked.
So you got into this like back ends part of it. So when you got in there, did you see some things that like, ooh, I like what they're doing. I'm gonna emulate that whenever I get my first time, book deal. Or what were some of the things that you learned in that experience to project you forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like not to talk shit. Wait, can I cuss in here?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, not to talk shit, but like I was really lucky at my previous job where I got to work with so many wonderful authors and agents, but also I definitely was taking notes on what not to do and how not to act, I think more than I was learning what to do, not in terms of craft, like all the writers that are represented there like are so talented and great, and it was a really good masterclass in how to become a better writer. But as far as like attitude goes, I definitely was like, ooh, I'm going to always be nice to people, because that wasn't always the case.
Yeah. There is some sort of a I guess a corner that gets put hole, or I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm quite the orator myself, but you kind of get pigeonholed as a writer because you have these guys that are very famous. You're people who are very disturbed and not excited about what they're doing, and they end up getting they're drunk in a ditch, and then they get famous 20 years later, and they never knew they were famous. And like I think that there's something to be said about somebody who's just like, hey, I'm positive. Buy my book because it's fun and I'm fun and it's I'm excited to be here. I'm not going to be a pain for anybody. I like that.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of it was like I didn't tell anyone that I worked with at the time that I wanted to be a writer. And so I would see all of these people like getting book deals and having their debut novel come out and all this stuff. And I was sitting there and I wanted that like so badly that I think over the years I built up this sense of like bargaining with the universe where I was like, okay, if I get this deal, I'm going to be so happy and I'm going to be so excited because I've watched other people get it all these like for all these years and I want it to be me so badly so that I really have nothing but like excitement and gratitude around the fact that it's my turn.
Yes, it is your turn. And well, I want to get into, kind of the creative process in writing the book. I think about that. It seems so daunting to me to sit there and look at a blank page and say, go. So what do I guess, are there things you do to psych yourself up? Are there things that you do to, what are some of the things you may have taken away from some of those other artists? Like talk about, the writing process itself, to its core.
Yeah, let's get deep into it. I mean, I do
Yeah.
think that everyone's process is super different. And so I've definitely like tripped myself up over the years, I think, by like reading in an interview that like, George Saunders does things this way, or like another author might do things one way. So then I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. But I think it's really about figuring out what works for you. And for me, with this book in particular, I started it during true like COVID lockdown. Like I was in New York where it was really intense and, we weren't really allowed outside very much. So like the way that this book came about was that I would like work my day job remotely, like shut my laptop. My roommate is also a writer. And so he and I would drink like 2 bottles of wine and like eat dinner. And then we would be like, okay, go into your room. And like, we're not going to come out until we've written like our goal. So for me, I was writing 2,000 words a day. So I would just kind of like go into my apartment, like write, and then we'd like come back out and like watch a TV show. So that was how I got the first draft out. But so I think for me, it's about setting like for a first draft, I set word count, like daily
Mhm.
goals and go from there. But like that's not what everyone does, and that's okay.
Yeah. What were there points in that, like, where did you just start kind of coming with the story at that point and start developing characters in those 2,000 words, maybe not like the full story, start to end, but like just start kind of getting ideas on the page to did it like begin with short stories and then they kind of built in together and then you're like, ooh, I can just like bridge all these through this way? Or did you start, like, I can imagine if you told me to go write 2,000 words, like I would be like, oh, like let me go write down what I did that day. Like,
Yeah.
were there differing things that you wrote down that in those sessions?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I mean, this book and the process of writing the book was really, really character driven. And like, this is going to make it sound like I should be institutionalized, but I can just like hear them talking in my head. Like I can hear them. And I was like, who is that? So I just was writing just random scenes from these people that I was hearing and like what I thought they were experiencing. And then the more that I wrote of that, I was like, oh, I think that this could be a story where like
Yeah.
maybe they're all in the same family and they all have these different things going on, but like if they're thrown together for this one week, which is what happens in the book, it's like a family reunion that takes place over the course of a week. um then everything just, I kind of ended up weaving everything together and the story came later. But yeah, at the beginning it was just like, oh, okay, like there are these sisters and they're talking in the airport, like what are they talking about? And I would just kind of like write that. And I mean that scene's not even in the book. But it all just comes from the characters, and then I started like bridging it together like you said.
I like it. I like it. So, you know, within the inspiration for the book, you said these scenes are in your head of, these two characters talking. Is there any inspiration you pulled from, your family or, real life that you've, kind of woven into the book that's kind of, if some people read it, they'll be like, me and Catherine had that exact same conversation, or, she definitely took that from a life experience.
Yeah, I mean, no one in the book is based on anyone. And I'm like nervous for some of my cousins and aunts and uncles to read it because I feel like they're going to think it's them, but it's totally not. It's really and truly like no one in this book is based on anyone. And the situations in this book are pretty outlandish and are not based on real life. But what I will say is that my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, and at his funeral, there was some sort of like miscommunication where the priest had been told that like someone from the family was going to like open up the funeral and like speak, but no one had planned on doing that. So like the funeral starts and the priest is like, okay, so someone from the family actually has a few words to say, but no one had anything prepared. And we were all like really devastated because we were all really close with my grandfather. He was this like wonderful man. And I was sitting next to my grandmother and she was like, well, get on up there. And I was like, shit. So then I was like, and my grandfather was like a beloved man in this like small town. So it was like a pretty full church. And I am not a great public speaker. So off the cuff, I was just like, yeah, my grandfather was great. Like he took me to see this movie, like telling all these like fucking random anecdotes. And it was just a shit show. And then the rest of it turned out fine. But when I came back to New York, everyone was, and my grandparents are from Valdosta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And then I came back to New York and everyone was like, well, how did everything go with your grandfather's funeral? And I was like, honestly, it was a shit show. And even though the funeral that opens my book where a grandfather dies, that funeral is also a shit show in a completely different way. My grandfather did not do the things that Gerry, the patriarch of my book, has done. But the opening line is Gerry Williams's funeral was a shit show. So I think I liked the sound of that. Like, oh, the funeral was a shit show. And so that's the closest thing I think to anything that's like from my life that's in there or that inspired it. But yeah.
Wow. I mean, the opening line of the book is Gerry Williams's funeral was a shit show.
Yes.
Let's go. I mean, again, I've told you kind of off this, but like I don't read books, but if you open up with something strong like that, I always knew from every writing class I took that you had to have a hook. So I mean, I'm hooked in. If our listeners aren't hooked in, they better be, because it's going to be a great book whenever it comes out. So when does the book come out? Let's talk logistics for just a second here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the actual story and some more stuff like that. But let's I want to make sure we get them in. When is it coming out? Where is it available? Where can we find it?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I do want to say to your listeners is that I'm so sorry. I'm sure you thought you were going to be hearing from like a really cool band, and instead you're talking to this like nerdy writer, and I can't imagine something more disappointing. So I apologize. But the book is coming out on April 18th. And you can pre-order it though right now from wherever you like to pre-order. I personally am a big fan of independent bookstores, and I really like the website bookshop.org that allows you to order from like, what you can pick a certain independent bookstore, or you can just order generally and they'll pick the store for you. But pre-ordering is a really helpful thing to do for authors because it can help alert stores to the idea that a book might be big and maybe they should order more. And like, it can really set the tone for how the book will do. So pre-ordering is a really great thing to do. But if you don't want to pre-order it, it's out on April 18th and you can get it wherever.
Love it. Love it. So pre-order bookshop.org.
Yeah, I think it's Oregon.com, but let me like double check.
We'll put it all right there below you in the description. We'll put it in the on the Spotify, everything, so they'll be able to link it out and
Perfect.
get to it that way. So, but you're doing a reading on May 5th here in our beautiful city of Atlanta, or both of our hometowns.
Yes.
And I'm curious about readings because it's not like a concert. Like, you're not going to read the book all the way through. Like, it's
No, I am.
like 100. How many pages is it?
No, I'm going to read maybe like a paragraph. Like, reading in public sounds really, it's not fun. Like, no one enjoys that. Like, the person reading it doesn't, I'm sure very few people enjoy hearing it. So I'll maybe read like a paragraph or two, I think. And then for that one, I'm not sure. There might be like a moderator. So it might be like a moderated conversation. There'll also be a Q&A. So if anyone is curious about writing, I recommend you come because I'll be there and I'm happy to answer any questions. So yeah. And I kind of want to go to Moe's and Joe's after. So I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, there is high potential for hot wings post this reading. So everybody said, and some PBR.
Absolutely. I may be guzzling PBR during the event. Do they allow alcohol in that store?
You're talking to a guy I don't go to a lot of bookstores. I wish I would. I should go to more. I did go to a show at a bookstore recently. So, but I wasn't there for books. But the guy did convince me to start thinking about books. So
Good.
I like it. Well, I want to get back to the book. The title. I feel like band names are similar to titles, wherein like if it looks good on the t-shirt, it's got to look good on a cover. You know, there's a lot of similarities there. So talk about like how you came up with If We're Being Honest. You know, what's that title? And, you know, it's powerful. So how'd you get it there?
Well, I was probably like halfway through writing it. And the book is, so like I mentioned earlier, the premise of the book is that this whole family has to return to this small fictional town in Georgia for their grandfather's funeral. And so there's like cousins, there's aunts, there's uncles, and there's his widow, Ellen. So there's 3 generations of the family. And they have like one of their dearest family friends is getting married in the town the next week. So they all come back for the funeral, but they're staying the whole week. And at the funeral, a big secret about Gerry is revealed. That's the patriarch who's dead. And so they're all kind of reeling like from the revelation of that secret. They also individually are all dealing with their own kind of stuff. And a lot of stuff over that week just like comes to light. And a lot of things that had been hidden previously just no longer were. So I realized that the idea of like being honest was a major theme. And then I just like the expression a lot. Like, if we're being honest, if I'm being honest, you know, people say it all the time.
Yeah.
And so I sort of thought like, oh, that would be a kind of pithy, cool title, but there's no way that it's available. And then I looked it up and no one had done it before. So I was like, fuck yeah, that's going to be the title.
I like it. I like it. There's something to it, you know, like the taking like a phrase or something like that, and then, you know, obviously weaving it in with the book. Like that's really, you know, like I was like so excited to talk to somebody like everybody I talk to, you know, I couldn't do it. Like I can't be a rock star or I can't be an author, but like, you know, being able to understand the inner workings of the process is just so cool to me. So
Well, I think I'm always so jealous of band names because I feel like the title of a book has to relate to the book, probably should in some way, but a band name can be fucking anything. And like that is, I mean, I'm sure that's like so scary, but also so great.
you know, we've had so many different explanations to the band names. Like, you know, we had somebody on. I had a band on that I just released actually today, March 15th, when we're recording this. The Moss, and I go, why do you call it the Moss? He goes, dude, because Moss can just survive anything. And I was like,
That's
that's
amazing.
fucking awesome.
Yeah. And like it's
Yeah,
perfect. And that also gives you like such a good visual. Like that's
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. And then like one guy was like, I go, so it's runner with 3 ends. So what's the deal with the 3 ends? And they're like, he goes, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to add an N in there. I'm like, all right.
But that's the thing
Like
is you can do whatever you want. My publisher would never let me misspell a word on purpose, sadly.
yeah, we couldn't beat cat with 2 T's.
Maybe for book 2.
Book 2, kitchen. There we go. All right. Well, I think we're getting a little silly here, so I think we're going
Sorry.
right into Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. This is 20 questions right in a row, Cat Shook, and it's going to be intense. All right. Are you
Okay.
ready?
I don't think I am ready, but I don't think that's going to matter to you.
Doesn't matter. Let's go. Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. Here we go. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Okay. All right. Salad or soup?
Soup.
All right. Are you eating your soup over the sunrise or the sunset? I guess that's a weird question. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Home run.
Okay. Night in or night out? What are you doing more of nowadays in New York?
Ugh. Sadly, lately it's been more nights in, but I'm about to turn in the edits for my second book, and then it's going to transition to nights out.
All right. Hopefully we can get that. We're getting a night out with her May 4th, Moe's and Joe's. She's drinking 20 PBRs. You heard it here first. All right. When you walk into a party, are you more likely to do the robot or the worm?
Robot.
Robot. All right. Guac or queso at your favorite Mexican joint?
Queso. And there's no good queso in New York.
Interesting. I've never heard that. Waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Tea is ridiculous.
I like that. That's a good answer. Dogs or cats?
Oh, like that's actually so hard because I love them both so much, but I am going to say dogs.
I like it. All right. Gombies, as you call them.
Gombies. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Are you more like a ninja or a pirate, would you say?
I'm going to say pirate because I'm loud.
I like it. All right. Gatorade or Powerade?
Gatorade.
Toast or bagels?
Bagels.
in New York, of course.
Yeah, come
Chips
on.
or pretzels?
Chips. Does anyone say pretzels?
Oh yeah, we've had multiple people say pretzels. They
Okay.
think, hey, like they add in all the whole breadth of pretzel, which is the soft pretzel as well. So
Oh shit. Well, I also do love those pretzels that have the peanut butter pouch. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm
oh
talking
yeah,
about?
peanut butter filled pretzels. There's the dot pretzels that people sleep on.
Oh,
I
but
mean,
dots are the love child between chips and pretzels.
that's true. A lot of seasoning. It's good.
Yeah.
I like it. We like it. Fries or tots?
Fries.
Fries. When you sit down, are you watching a TV show or a movie?
These days, I feel like it's usually more TV, but we did just have the Oscars, so I was trying to watch a lot of movies.
Okay, I like it. Are aliens real?
Yeah,
What about Bigfoot?
probably not.
Is love at first sight real?
Uh, not for me.
I like it. I like it. All right, and our last question of Pete Peterson's party pack of questions. You've slain through this. Who are some authors we might not know that we ought to check out and read?
Oh
Give
my
me one or
gosh.
two.
Okay. Okay, that's kind of hard. So I'm looking over at my books to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. Well,
We can do bands if you want to do bands.
I'll do authors.
Okay.
I can't have your listeners hear me be like, Beyonce. Well, there is a wonderful author named Becky Chalson who has a book coming out on the same day as me that is a wonderful summer book that I highly, highly recommend. And another of my favorite authors that I feel like people should read way more of her is her name is Jen Began, and her most recent book is called Big Swiss.
Jen Began. I'm not gonna be able to spell that. How do you spell it?
Beagin.
Jen Began, Big Swiss. Is that about a big Swiss person?
It is. It's about a big Swiss woman. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's go. All right. Well, you conquered Pete Peterson's party pack of questions with Becky Chalson and Jen Began. Her book, Big Swiss, highly recommended. Becky Charleston's got a book coming out April 18th as well. But you know who else has got a book coming out April 18th? That would be Kat Shook, our guest of honor today. And Kat, we appreciate you stopping by. I look forward to seeing you on May 4th. I might have finished the book by May 4th. We'll see. I mean, it will be the first book I've read all year.
Oh my God. Well, I'm honored. And I think you'll fly through it. And the only thing I'm going to say is that there are a lot of characters, but there is a family tree in the beginning. So there's no reason to get confused.
Good reference point. I like that. I'm a visual learner. That'll be good. I like that.
That'll help.
That's a big play. That's a big play. I like it. So May 4th, she'll be at the Virginia Highlands bookstore across the street from Moe's and Joe's. For those who are local listening on this podcast, her book comes out April 18th globally. You can pre-order it prior to that on bookstore.org or other places that you like getting books. So please check out If We're Being Honest by Kat Shook. Thank you, Kat Shook, for coming on Indiebnb. We appreciate you. We look forward to having you on for the second book after this first book is a massive success and you live in a nice New York brownstone.
Well, I mean, your lips to God's ears. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. And you know that I love you. I'm sorry if that's inappropriate to say on your podcast.
It's okay. It's okay. All good. All right. Thank you guys.